This video is a response to another video that was recently posted by Ovendal, in which he discusses what makes a game essential to the medium of video games. I'll leave a link to his video down in the description, and I would encourage you to go watch it first if you haven't already. But to summarize, the video goes over aspects that define a game as essential to the medium of gaming, and he goes over a few historically and culturally significant games that he thinks qualify and everyone should play. Importantly, he encourages community feedback and discussion surrounding this concept and the list of essential games he provided, which honestly I think is a fantastic idea, and I think this is a really interesting concept as well. And I sure do have some feedback about that list of his, so let's get right into it. First off, I do want to say that I pretty much agree with every pick on the original list, and I've even played the majority of them myself. I do want to comment on one pick in particular though, which is Burnout 3. Specifically in regards to this part of the video.
Is Burnout 3 the racing game of all time? I don't know, but I'm almost certain there's someone watching this video who has an encyclopedic knowledge on the racing genre and its history that could tell me.
Now, I may be a bit biased here, seeing as Burnout 3 is literally my favorite game ever, but yes, you are 100% correct. Burnout 3 is the racing game of all time. However, I don't think it's alone in that distinction. Racing games can be pretty cleanly divided into two, maybe three distinct subgenres. Those being arcade racers, sim racers, and debatably kart racers if you don't want to lump those in alongside arcade racers. Burnout 3 is the absolute pinnacle of arcade racers, but there is an equally important game on the simulation side of the spectrum that's probably been more influential than anything Criterion has ever developed. And that game is Gran Turismo. This 1997 PlayStation title laid the groundwork for nearly every sim racer that's followed over the past 24 years. The insane amount of time and attention to detail that went into recreating real-world vehicles on mid-90s computer hardware resulted in a realistic driving experience that couldn't be matched by anything apart from its own sequel for years after release. Polyphony Digital still puts out a new Gran Turismo game every 5 to 7 years, and to this day the series is consistently at the forefront of the sim racing genre. Gran Turismo Sport is literally an Olympic sport. Even speaking as someone who sticks pretty firmly to the arcade side of the racing genre and isn't much of a car person in real life, I can say I've played my fair share of Gran Turismo, and I can absolutely appreciate the obsessive lengths the developers go to in crafting these games. I don't think anyone who's played the series can argue that it doesn't deserve a place on an essential games list. I also think Super Mario Kart deserves a place on that list, because it occupies basically the same role as GT, but in the kart racing subgenre. Now, there is one genre in Ovendal's original list that I find to be not just underrepresented, but criminally absent, and that's the immersive sim. Immersive sim titles of the mid to late 90s have been so tremendously influential in the evolution of gaming as a medium that I'm shocked not a single one made the cut. The only thing even approaching an immersive sim that was brought up in the original video was BioShock, only for it to be compared to Half-Life 2 instead of its actual lineage. Like, dude, no offense, but how did you completely miss this super innovative and influential offshoot of first-person shooters? One could easily make the case as to why just about any game of the 0451 lineage should be considered one of the medium's most essential titles. But I think the one game that best exemplifies the genre, and has one of the furthest reaching cultural legacies, is Deus Ex. Deus Ex is the first game Warren Spector worked on after leaving Looking Glass, and it's the culmination of everything he helped to pioneer while at that studio. It was the first game that I would consider to have the complete immersive sim formula. You have more options at your disposal than in Thief, and unlike System Shock 2, you can go with pretty much any character build and playstyle and still beat the game. Deus Ex rewards exploration, creative thinking, and experimentation in ways rarely seen in linear games, even to this day. The levels have multiple, often conflicting objectives, and the story has a number of branching paths based on your choices and playstyle. Speaking of the story, this is the game that I think really showed that video games, as a medium, were capable of tackling more serious adult subject matter and could have actual socio-political commentary. The game is all about things like conspiracies and terrorism and police states and transhumanism. The RPG elements also allow the story to function as a backdrop for players to explore their own morality and philosophy to a degree. I'd argue that Deus Ex is the progenitor of the kinds of moral choice systems that were prolific during the 7th console generation. I also want to quickly point out that this game was developed by Ion Storm, the same studio responsible for Daikatana, which is also on Ovendal's original list. Deus Ex is very much the yang to Daikatana's yin, but that's the least of the reasons I'd call it an essential game. Now, the final game that I think deserves to be considered essential to the medium, based purely on its quality and influence, is Quake. While working on Quake, John Carmack developed an extremely efficient method of rendering full 3D environments, and his method works so well that it's still being used by games today. Seriously, dozens of big-budget releases and probably thousands of indie projects and mods are all powered by the Quake engine and its derivatives, including a number of titles on the original Essential Games list. The open nature of the engine means that Quake and a few of its relatives continue to be ported to every platform under the sun in both an official and unofficial capacity. For those reasons alone, it deserves to be considered one of gaming's most essential titles, but its influence goes beyond just technical achievement. A huge number of things that are prolific in gaming, both as a medium and a subculture, either originated in or were popularized by Quake. Rocket jumping? Quake. Bunny hopping? Quake. No clipping? Quake. Machinima? Started with Quake. Competitive speedrunning? Got big with Quake. Dedicated graphics cards? People first started buying them because of Quake. And I'm sure there's plenty more I haven't even thought of. Basically, if you consider yourself a gamer, you owe at least some portion of that cultural identity to Quake, even if you've never played it before. And it's for that reason, above all else, that I think Quake deserves to be considered an essential game. Before we move on, I want to quickly give some honorable mentions. These are Pokemon Red, Earthbound, and Chrono Trigger, which all share the distinction of being the only turn-based JRPGs I've played through to completion. These games all have huge fan bases and have each been massively influential on gaming as a medium. I feel comfortable saying that at least one of these titles deserves to be listed among the medium's most essential works, but honestly, I'm just not knowledgeable enough about JRPGs to say which of these titles has been the most influential, or which was the biggest landmark within the genre. That's something for you guys to debate down in the comments. Now, one thing I think is really neat about Ovendal's Essential Games concept is that it not only highlights games that are notable for their success and influence, but also those which are notable for their abject failure. All the games that he included as notable failures are generally considered to be bad games, but they're all the fun kind of bad. They're the kind of games you play to point and laugh at with your friends, which is all well and good, but I feel like this overlooks another type of bad game, one that's been much more influential and is far more sinister in its awfulness. I'm talking about the games that are notable for exemplifying the worst aspects of this medium and its industry, the ones that push the envelope in terms of predatory practices and user-hostile design. Things like invasive DRM, on-disc DLC, pre-order bonuses, always online requirements, regular content updates, in-game microtransactions, and of course loot boxes. These are all an unfortunate part of the medium and its history, and the games that introduced and normalized these practices should not be forgotten. Games like Diablo 3, SimCity 2013, Dead Space 3, The Crew, Shadow of War, Fallout 76, Assassin's Creed Origins, Overwatch, Anthem, the past few FIFA games, and of course Star Wars Battlefront 2 all fit this category. While these titles are obviously important from a historical and industry perspective, I'm not sure it's fair to call these games essential, at least not in the same way Half-Life and Mario 64 are. Most of them are predatory by design, and as such, I don't believe they should be played for any reason other than educational and research purposes. I'd even go so far as to say the world would be a better place if most of these games didn't exist. That doesn't exactly jive with Ovendal's Essential Games concept, so I feel like we may need a second list just for games that are notable for regressing the medium in some way. I could go into more detail with specific examples, but if I did that we'd be here all day, and this video is already longer than I had hoped. There are just so many games that have helped pioneer regressive predatory design, particularly in the past 10 years, that I'm not even sure which ones deserve the most focus. This is definitely a topic for another video, but I wanted to bring it up here because it seemed important. So I'll continue what Ovendal started and put it to you guys. What games would you consider to be essential in pioneering predatory design? Or what games do you consider to be essential period that haven't been mentioned here? Let me know down in the comments, or if you feel so inclined, make a follow-up video like I have. I think the idea of a crowdsourced essential games list is a really cool concept, and I'd love to see this discussion continue, even if it is being taken a bit too seriously. Hey guys, thanks for watching till the end. Give this video a like, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And of course, go check out Ovendal's original video on this topic if you haven't seen it already. I think that's all. Bye.